Hey, we're at San Diego Comic-Con 2023. I'm with Mike Horn, president of Burgschneider. That is a company focused on LARPing and cosplay. Rather interesting that they're moving, generally European, they've been moving into the U.S., and that is part of what Mike is doing. So first, I guess, tell us about the company itself.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Burgschneider is about a 10-year-old business that was born out of originally the Ren Fair business. So it was a hobby. One of the original founders was doing Ren Fairs, making handmade items in Tibet, and selling them at Ren Fairs. And one of the other founding partners owned a gaming store in Germany, and saw him every week coming back from these Ren Fairs, and like, wow, I think there's a business here. So Marcus got involved and basically created a business about 10 years ago. And the original focus was on LARP. So LARP being the center circle of, medieval, specifically medieval style. So over the course of 10 years, they've just built a product line that services that very, very specific center niche. Like you said, almost exclusively in Europe, and even out of Europe, almost exclusively in Germany. So specifically to Germany. But because of the reputation for craftsmanship and attention to detail and the authenticity, they've just had a spillover audience. Like there's a business here in North America of people who are buying the product off the website and off of Etsy because they already know about us. They know about, they have a friend who's a LARPer in Europe, and this stuff's the best, you should get it. And they've actually built a fairly substantial business through just word of mouth with no effort. And for them, they're like, the approach is, in order to be successful in the US, we need someone who knows what they're doing and is based in the US. And they're sitting there in Germany like the US is just extra business. Same way we as a US company might look at, if Scandinavia was all of a sudden ordering from us, we'd be like, it's nice, thanks for the orders. I can't attempt to run a Scandinavian business from the US. We'll wait until we've got someone in place. And basically, I was available and the timing worked out. I come from a world of licensed products. So like Comic-Con, my company back in the day we were the first company to make a Comic-Con exclusive action figure. I used to own a company called Palisades Toys, and we did, it's always amazing that people remember us. But we were kind of known for, we had a license for the Muppets. It was pretty popular, and we had a bunch of video game stuff, and we did statues, and it's great. I cut my teeth in that business. And so how I got involved in Burgschneider is a mutual friend of mine and the ownership of Burgschneider, as they were moving into licensing and also desiring to have a footprint in the US. Literally a month ago, I sat down with them at a licensing show and kind of talked about my background and what I thought I could do with something like this. And within a few days, I find myself with a job I wasn't necessarily looking for.
So with them, they've got two licenses really announced at this point. Stuff with Dungeons and Dragons, and then Warhammer, particularly the fantasy aspect of Warhammer. As a company, I mean, one, what does licensing bring to the table? And then the other would be like, what challenges are there, since they've kind of been known at more of just, I would say, general fantasy, that sort of stuff of basically how does it shift both like the marketing, the products, like everything about it?
Well, it's interesting. The company to date has never had a marketing department. It's solely word of mouth. And I will say this, from early stage, there was a big belief in content. So really high production value photos and videos, good editing, good music. I mean, you look at the videos on the site, they look like they don't look like a bunch of fans in gear. They look like real actors with professional sets and professional filmmaking. And it's just a commitment to making it look right. So they've got this running head start solely on word of mouth in the old-fashioned way. So to answer your question, what does licensing bring? It brings access to existing audiences that are already corralled. Lord of the Rings audience or the D&D audience, the Warhammer audience. These are established fan bases, self-identified in a lot of cases, and they're nearby to what we're already doing. To take our medieval line and make a Dungeons and Dragons version wasn't a huge departure, right? So it's I think it's finding a larger audience. The other thing is that, and the delicate balancing act of remaining authentic is we kind of view the business in concentric circles. So the center foundational circle is LARP, right? Specifically, people who want to dress up and have a multi-day experience and this immersive, game experience. Then the circle wider than that is cosplay, and they're not. It maybe even more like circles that touch each other and don't necessarily overlap, because the cosplay is more look at me, not necessarily I'm going to participate in this thing. And then the circle bigger than that encompasses them both is just your pop culture fan. So are you a fanatic or an enthusiast of medieval times, or are you a enthusiast of Dungeons and Dragons? It's more easily identifiable as a D&D. So the product line is designed to satisfy both. So what I mean by that is, like, for New York Comic Con, we're launching at New York Comic Con, but we're making some products that are like amulets and pins. So if you want to be head to toe a Dungeons and Dragons rogue, we're there for you. But maybe you just want this amulet. That's right. Or like we're making like these authentic German beer steins, but they'll look like they come right out of the taverns in the game. So they don't have D&D branding all over them. But same thing, if you want it as part of your LARPing experience, it satisfies that. If you want it as part of your cosplay costume, it satisfies that. But if you just want one for like game night or to stick on your shelf to put behind you on your Zoom call that no one notices, it can do that too.
Kind of going off of that, we talked about it a little bit before, is from what I've noticed, and it kind of goes with what you're talking about, is 5-10 years ago there was kind of a push into cosplay LARPing of, I would say, the fabric companies that were, here's this fabric, here's this pattern, put it together yourself. And then, while I would say it definitely started at Gen Con is where I kind of noticed it, years ago, it was always present of the more put together aspects of it. And it feels like there's this rise and kind of shift from the do-it-yourself to what I'll call like the put-together professional. Here's companies doing, very high quality, like movie quality, I guess you can almost call it, products for people that appeals to the LARPers, the cosplayers, and the average person who just might like something and maybe dress up for Halloween or some event. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe that shift in that industry at all? I mean, is that something that you familiar with or can talk about? Sure.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think that the foundational roots of the DIYers were driving it all. Think about it. Look, we were just talking a little while ago about our various home projects, right? And the rise in DIYing from home and watching a YouTube video to figure out how to do stuff. Like, I think there's that. But I also think there's a lot of people that want the shortcut. Like, I don't know how to sew. I don't want to learn how to do, completely from scratch, but I still want to customize. I still want to look good. And I think there's a happy medium where a company like Burgschneider is providing products that, for the most part, are intended to be further customized. But it's, a gauntlet that's already been, it's a piece of armor that's designed to fit on your shoulder. Like, these are the engineering and the challenge of making it fit, and gloves you can move your fingers. Like there's a functional side of that needs to happen. And, do you really need to engineer head to toe completely from scratch, or could you take a base and modify it? Think about it in parallels in other worlds, like the home brewers. Right? Am I really like making beer from scratch, or I go to the homebrew place and I buy a kit that's got the hops and the various spices and herbs and the way to make it the way I want, and then I kind of follow the directions the rest of the way. Like, to me, it's that same neighborhood of like, I'm building it, but I'm getting help from professionals to give me a running head start.
So you've talked about, like, it mainly kind of kicked off in Germany, and that's where their current kind of base fandom is. Is there something that, as you're coming on board, have you noticed that differs between that European audience and the American audience? Like, I don't know well enough between the two of them. I just know in the U.S., but is there anything that stuck out to you so far?
Ask me again in 3 weeks. I'm going to my friend, and as I was telling you before we got started this, I don't want to pretend that I'm a lifetime LARPer who found this. A lot of people in our company are, and I love them for that. My role is that I've built pop culture merchandise businesses, so that's the crossover. For sure there are differences. Think of a LARP, like the LARP event that I'm going to in Germany takes place with an actual medieval castle as part of the backdrop, right? We don't have a lot of medieval castles in the US. So, there are some elements that have to be adapted. But is there an audience here that relishes that escapism that comes from, dressing up in a costume and, being this, entering this fantasy world and doing however way you apply it? Like we have a bit of a slogan, and we say, like, be your favorite self, which is, the uniform you wear to your work is your work uniform, and you don't choose that probably. It's obviously different with everyone working from home, but you know what I mean? In general, like, your work uniform is, whether it's a collared shirt or a tie or whatever it may be, is your work uniform. You dress up in a medieval costume and want to go, swing a axe at somebody. That's a level of escapism that we're trying to provide, and I think that's universal worldwide.
So you're looking to, I would say, bring more brands into the fold. Obviously there's tons of fantasy that you can already go with. I mean, you've got Paizo's full lineup Pathfinder. There's, so many worlds out there. Is the company looking maybe to go beyond that? I mean, there's so much cosplay out there. You've got the Warhammer Fantasy, but obviously you have 40K as an example. You could go with that. You could go with Starfinder. I mean, are they sticking? Do you know? Not maybe to give stuff away, but are you looking beyond the fantasies?
Yeah. In short, absolutely. The ambition is to do what we've done. So you have the delicate balance, like, right? So we want to remain true to the medieval LARPing roots and that level of authenticity that got us this far, but expand into other fandoms. So to me, there's two short-term paths, which is take our existing medieval LARPing stuff, bring it to the U.S., bring our approach to the U.S. There's no real central leader in the U.S. in this category like we have in Europe. The second is use these licensed brands to attract the audience as we talk. And then the third is to go into other fandoms that are want the same level of authenticity, but maybe aren't medieval related, right? Maybe it's anime, maybe it's steampunk related, maybe it's known fictions with brands that we know. I mean, there's other ways to go that we can still remain true to that feeling of authenticity and coming out of being in world with the products that we make that aren't limited to, sort of medieval fantasy.
So, final question and wrap things up, because I know you've got other places you need to go, is, you're still fairly new in the position. Is there anything and you're not from the LARPing world, is there anything so far that has surprised you and, like, really stood out?
Trick question, I think. No, because not yet. Let's say, because fundamentally, I get fandom. We said it for years. Then Funko actually made it a slogan. Everyone's a fan of something, right? So I understand fandom, and I understand why people are fans of things, and that desire to have an immersive experience. So to me, the taking that feeling of acceptance, of, like, even the secret handshake aspects of being an insider in a group, I think that feeling is what we're really building on. That's we want you as a consumer of our products to have that feeling of you know, I'm in this special club. And I think that club can vary from brand to brand and fandom to fandom, but that feeling is still the same. And I think that like, not specifically to this pop culture world, but I for years I have said that the guy who puts on a football jersey to watch his team on TV on Sunday, Philadelphia Eagles in my case, right? That fandom is the same fandom as what we're seeing here, right? There's a connotation of like the sports guy and the comic nerd. It's the same fandom, right? I've always believed that, and in that regard, you know, I think my job's kind of easy.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you chatting, and so wish you luck as you move into the U.S.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll see you in the D.C. area for sure.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for watching Board Game today. We always appreciate your views and your support, but there are so many ways for you to support our site. Not only can you do it right here on video, but you can go and check us out at BoardGameToday.com, where we have more news, reviews, interviews, everything you could ever want. But since you're here, if you could, you can always give us a like, subscribe, or share our videos or watch something else. Is always much appreciated, and get your game on.